G'day, I'm DaveTTC and this is Dave's Cave, and today's forecast is cloudy with a chance of showers, or should I say showers with a chance of floods. Yes, we're on flood alert for many towns around the Wimmera. In fact, much of the east coast of Australia is on flood alert. I'm safe here, must say, glad to be working inside. It's a good thing, nice and warm. Anyway, on today's episode, we're going to have a look at a project that I do as a workshop with new people to wood turning, with homeschoolers amongst the homeschooling community. I've had a couple of workshops with kids where I have made, or they have made, little mini baseball bats. They can be used as bombie knockers. A term that a truckie gave me. They use them to whack their tyres to check the integrity. I'm not sure exactly what it does. The sound lets them know if it's got air or not. Only for a bombie knocker, apparently they need to be a little bit longer and weighted at the end. Otherwise, just a mini baseball bat, which you can use with a ping pong ball. So this is one that I've done as just part of a workshop. I've shown other kids what we're doing. And so you'll see on the end we have the centre mark. On the other end we have the drive spur mark. It was just a quick project and not too much time was put into finish. I'd say almost no time, except that yes, it was sanded. And it's utilitarian, it means to be used. So therefore, when I'm making these to sell at the markets, I'm not focusing too much on finish. That said, I want it to look a little bit better than these ones. So here's a few I made last night, and the keen eye will see that they're not all exactly the same, and they don't need to be. But after all, baseball bats, they come in different sizes and weighted for different swings. Not that I play baseball, but it's just something I believe I've heard somewhere along the lines. What you will see is that this time I've endeavoured to not leave the marks on the ends from the drive spur or the live centre at the other end. So we'll go have a walk over to the lathe and I'll show you how I turn it. Now before that, I did cut over on the drop saw. So let's have a look. On the drop saw, we just used the sliding fence, and that window packer is there as a stop. And so I used 90 by 45 to cut to length. And then over on the saw, I ripped these all in half. Once they're ripped in half, it was a case of putting a centre mark in it. So we grab our block. Now I always put the, if you can see the slightly rounded edges, so I always put the machined edge towards me, the cut edge away, and then I just grab my little jig. So instead of using the green side for 35-35, and the green side facing yay, the single hole there, I rotate it and I use the two timber sides as my locating so that I can press with my left thumb into the corner and then bang, bang, and I'm just using the top hole. This was a double hole when I was doing my plane for multi-axis turning. And so now we have at each end a centre mark. At that point I have my lathe set up so that the sprung ends in both the centres are just enough that with that fully retracted it won't fall out, and I'm ready to round the blank. Don't like this particular setup because it means I've got to shift my tool rest. When I say that, this is longer than my tool rest. So what I do well, let's have a look. I'll line my tool up, my tool rest up, roughly with the bed. I'm hanging out a little bit this end because what I'm going to do is I'm going to rough down this end, get this bit round, and then I'm going to round off the edge. All right, so let's get cracking. Now I am going to lock my tailstock. I don't normally do that, but because this takes a little bit longer to turn and the knob is here, it does rattle down and loosen off a bit. So I'm just going to do that one more. Yep, I'll just lock that in. So using my roughing gouge, my whatever this one is, I'm just going to take off the high points. Now, if you go back 5 or 10 seconds, you'll see that that just rotated if we're not zoomed in. Now, it sounds like it's still not round. You know, it's getting close there. That sounds good there. Now, at this point here, I'm going to put my bead on the end, half bead, whatever you want to call it. Probably could have had my tailstock over just. Tailstock, my tool rest over a tad more. So I'm just going to roll this end. Now what I'm going to do here is going to make that a little bit shorter. So we'll just move you around so you can see. Now as I turn this, I'm leaving this little shoulder on. I want to come in pretty square at this point so that then I can sand off the section where the drive spur is biting in to the wood. So we'll just give that a little bit more of a now here I'm watching that square edge on this side and where it lines up with the spur. I don't want the blade to make contact, but I do want to get close enough to minimise sanding. And that's about it there. At this point, I'm going to guess roughly how small I'm going to be at this end. I just want to rough some of this down before I shift my tailstock again. Turn the speed up a little, I'm a bit low there. Now I'm trying to get this fairly straight along this edge here. Again, utilitarian, it's going to get used, it's going to get thumped. This isn't a showpiece and it's not a rolling pin, so we're not going to worry about getting it perfectly straight, but we do want to get it pretty close, roughly by eye. And I'm thinking that this taper will carry on to the little knob at the end. It should be about right there. So now we'll move this along and we'll get ready to do this end. I might just move you across. So we're going to round off the rest of the blank. This should just be a few passes. pretty close. Probably should have said 4 passes. Oh, still not quite there. That's better. Just pay a little bit of attention here to getting that line a little bit better. I will take a final pass probably with this chisel just to take out and tear out. So now we're going to round off this end. We'll just break that corner, and so we've left that little knob on there just so we can sand it off, and then we need to round out the bead on this side. Might just take some of the waste out. And round that off a bit more. Now we have a choice here. We can either go for round and then round, or we can have it flow a little bit like that one where it's contoured, or we can have a little bit more of a square corner. I'm interested to know what you think is better. Should we have it square or should we have it rounded? I think for now I'm going to go for square, but let me know in the comments if you think otherwise. Of course, the other option is I could look online and see what a real baseball bat looks like. What do you mean real? This is real. Figment of my imagination. Okay, so yes, we're going to make that square. So let's pick it up again. Okay, we've got a little bit of a hump there, so we're just going to take that out. At least we're going to try to. Little tiny hump there. This looks a little bit rough up here. That looks fairly good there. Just a little bit of a sheen, and that looks fairly flat. So let's just stop our lathe. Okay, so I'm not sure how good you can make it out, but that's definitely got ridges in it, whereas this has got a better cut, particularly that very last bit there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the chisel at about that angle there and just come from the other end, because I'll be on this side. I'll come from the small end to the big end and just take a fine shave and try to maintain the shape without going too deep anywhere. Okay, so I'll pick up at about here, and you'll be able to see me chasing the line trying not to go too deep. I want to do this slowly so that you can see what's happening. And you'll see that we're going from a flat finish to a more shiny finish. A couple of little ridges here and there. There's perhaps I'm going a bit too slow. Oops, we just lost our edge. Alright, that'll make a little bit less work for sanding. There's a couple of indiscrepancies, but we will pick that up with the sanding as well. So here are our papers. 120, 180, 240, 320. I think that's what I got. We'll have a look in a sec. Excuse me, this particular brand of paper is colour coded. So instead of having to open it up and think, oh, what colour, what grade have I got? You're able just to go by colours. So you go white, yellow, blue, orange, green. So white is your 120, yellow is your 180. In reality, you could go from 120 to 240. You don't need 180. They say if you double the grit, that's fine. So there we've got our 240. From 240, we could go straight to 400, but we'll do the 320. And this will just be very light passes once we've done our initial sand. And then our 400. We can move this out of the way. And I wrap the paper around a little bit by getting it around like that. Your paper's going to be fairly straight, and that's going to help more to just even out any of the indiscrepancies. And just work the paper. I will slow that down a bit so that we're cutting instead of burning. And we'll just, so there's just a little bit of a line there. Just want to work that out. That looks better. And that looks passable. We'll just give our end a little bit of a sand. And then I'll just go through the other grits really quickly. Probably takes more time unrolling it than it does to sand it. That feels so smooth, so nice. When we oil it, the oil will possibly lift the grain a little bit, I'm not sure. Doesn't seem to feel as smooth when it's oiled. We'll drop that down. I'm just using boiled linseed oil. If you were to put a burnished finish on or like a wax finish, that would be real nice. But it's going to get used. It's going to get knocked about. Oil works fine. Don't really need to sand it as much as I did. I could have probably got away with 120 in reality. I just like the feel of it so smooth. And I'm probably not going to get any more money for it. And then we'll just give this a little bit of a buff off. And here I run the risk of sawdust in my cloth. And I could end up putting lines in instead of keeping it smooth. Ah, that feels nice. That does feel nice indeed. From there, we pop it out. So we see that it doesn't fall out because of where I've got that locked. I just use the spring and the spur to be able to pull it out. Now this one, I might have locked in a bit too tight on that. I think we're going to end up with some marks in the end. I might even, oops, I might do two things. Knock that forward a bit. I'm just going to make that bead at the end a little bit shorter on that one because the spur marks actually transition further than I want. It's at about this point here, I'll probably get a catch and reel on the thing. Now, if I was doing a lot of these, I'd just be putting this into a bucket, grab the next one, put it in, keep going. The next thing is to sand off those little knobs, and I do that on the belt sander, the belt and disc sander combo. What I'll do is, with the belt direction, if you imagine the belt running up and down, see the grain direction, orientate it. I know I'm sanding end grain, but I'll orientate it that way so that it's going with the grain. Don't really know if it makes a difference, but just mentally in my head it's sort of semi with the grain, and I hope it gets a better finish. I need to get one of these, can't think what they're called, steb drive or something, instead of 4 spurs, a lot of little ones, and it doesn't go in as deep, and so therefore I could leave a smaller little nub on the end, whatever you want to call that bit, and it'll be less to sand off. So we'll jump over the sander and my technique over there. Now this is my technique. You might have different ideas. I've taken the table off the disc. I could do it on the disc sander, but that'll bog up a lot quicker. The belt's got a lot more length to it. So I just hold that like so, using this hand, which is going to get in the way. So I'll do it left-handed, just demonstrate. I'll try and do the whole lot left-handed and actually do it. I'll hold that there and I'll work down till pretty close to the point. Then I'll come off to here where there's a little bit of give in the paper, and I'll just work around a little bit, just get that final little bit. Let's have a look in action. And that's pretty smooth across the end. I can just finish it off with the disc sander, with the orbital sander. And so we've just got a slightly domed end, but I'll do the same for the other end of the hand. Normally I do this both at once, I wouldn't stop in between. Once the sanding is done, it's just time to finish, and I'll just drop that into it touches. Drop that into it touches, and I'll be doing a few of these at once, so my cloth will become loaded, and every now and then I'll be able to do one without even having to drop it in. We just got a very slight hint of the spur drive there. I think the other one's called a steb drive, the one that I want to get. The only thing is with the steb drive is they don't do it in that extra long drive like what I've got there, and I really like my long sander drive. It's just I can put it through my chuck when my chuck's on and still have the chuck there without having to remove it, though the chuck has been removed at present. We'll live with that. So that's the process of how I make a mini baseball bat. The length of those bats when finished is probably about 435 millimeters, that is. Oh, had a tape measure right there. Let's have a look. Oh, not bad actually. It's for 340. So for those who speak that other language, it's just shy of 12, 13, 14 inches. It's almost 14 inches long. or 340. Of course, you can make this whatever you want to make it. My timber was just slightly over 2.4, so I calculated the maximum length, the maximum amount I could get without too much wastage, which came in. My blank was cut to 345. To err on the side of safety, I probably could have taken it down to 340. I think at 340, I still would have comfortably got however many that worked out to. I think it was 7 out of a 2.4. I do try to work what I can get out of standard material without having too much waste, but also I didn't want this too short because then it's not quite big enough to use. When I use it, I tend to hold it like that and just hook my finger in, and I can go out with the kids and not hit them. Get a ping pong ball and yes, another story. I did stand at the back door one day and I hit something to one of my kids. Can't tell you about that. You're going to have to ask me in the comments and maybe I'll tell you in another video. It was a funny situation. And it happened more than once. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please don't forget, like, subscribe and share. Love to have you come back and watch some more. My chair has a mind of its own. Bye for now.